so much for having the patience, and we have a stellar panel with us. This is, of course, as you know, it's a D2C panel. But just to keep you all posted, and we were having the conversation at the backstage also, what exactly is D2C? So D2C is not a sector. D2C is not a segment wherein the money is flowing in and people are like, gearing up and funding the sector as such. D2C is just a medium. D2C is just a technology through which a lot of companies are trying to put their products across to consumers. And we have a stellar panel here to talk about what are the challenges of doing the same when it comes to reaching out to consumers, when it comes to setting up the infrastructure to ensure that the products reaches the consumer, when it comes to setting up the technological bandwidth to ensure that there's a smoothness in the way the overall ecosystem plays up when we are trying to reach out to the consumers with the best available product. So let me begin by asking Deepanshu, the fact that this is a category you are working on, it's fresh meat, fresh produce that you've been working on. The fact that this is a category which is something that conventionally consumers have relied upon by going to the market, witnessing the products themselves, there's a basic touch and feel factor to it. How are you trying to kind of crack this market through both your online and offline channels?
Hi, everybody. To answer your question, I think that's how every business has started in e-commerce, where everybody was expecting touch and feel, whether it was clothing, whether it was electronics. I think food was disrupted, slightly at the same time with Zomato coming in, where people were getting into the habit of ordering online food, especially. So grocery, food, I think we form under the same category. We're not very different. The behaviors are slightly different, but I think what we've seen is that people are looking for convenience. People want to get a better product, and we wanted to do that. Easier said than done. It took us about 3 years, to really, standardize the supply chain, ensure quality, SOPs, all compliances from our food quality are kept to deliver what the expectation of the customer. It was actually a little more difficult because the customer, actually was also not aware what he wants. In our category, we go to a local store, you'll just get, a good cut of meat. You trust that guy, he'll give you it, give you the same
I think we didn't
product.
know what a good cut is.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So the new generation didn't actually knew what they want. They were always relying on their parents or somebody elder in the family who've been doing it for a while. Now the decision was in their own hands, is what really conspired. And we wrote that story of this is a good cut, and this is the benchmark, this is the temperature, this is how you need to, eat it or cook it or store it. So a lot of education had to be done, which took its own sweet time. It didn't come, that easy, but it's been 8-9 years we've been in the market. I think it has matured with some of the other players. We've seen after COVID especially the need of hygiene, health, coming at the front. So overall, very, exciting times in front of us. And currently we've actually passed that, stage of understanding the customer dynamic here. We have about 300,000 registered customers present in Delhi and Bangalore both. So fairly, growing, maturing category.
Right, absolutely. I mean, that for ZappFresh has worked, but let me ask Radhika. Radhika, this is something which is not at all alien for you. You've done ShopClues, and we all know how a brilliant startup you started off at that point in time when e-commerce was kind of very, very new in the ecosystem. With KindLife, you are targeting millennials and Gen Z, how we like to call it. So how are you taking the D2C approach and trying to reach out to the right customer segment? If you could tell us and take us through that.
Thank you. Thanks, Priyanka. It's good fun to be here, back again. And, I heard the previous panel and they were talking about Gen 1 entrepreneurs and then Gen 10 entrepreneurs. And I no longer know where I fit, somewhere along that line. But I think this goes back to the conversation you and I were having earlier, right? D2C in itself is a channel. When you are building out a brand or you're building out a platform, but more true for brands, right? D2C is a channel. And it's a great channel because it gives you access to your customer data. It lets you control your customer experience. It lets you retarget your customer. And all of this is not possible when you are selling through platforms. Now, does this make platforms redundant? No. Does this make omnichannel redundant? No. It is a combination that works well. A combination of D2C channels. We're talking about omnichannel today as well. Omnichannel and platforms together. The beauty is that when we started ShopClues in 2011, it was the era of e-commerce 1.0. Where you would bring supply and demand together and magic would happen. And it did happen. It took us a while, data sasta hua, et cetera, but magic did happen, right? E-commerce 2.0 was when the verticals came of life, the Lens cards of the world, the Nike cards of the world. There were still platforms that were aggregating brands. And now is the time, over the last 3 to 4 years, and today is a great day to celebrate Mama Earth right here, but also a great time when our brands have come of age,
Correct.
which has not happened in the last 10 years. Of course, we've had the classic legacy brands from Hamdard and Tabar and so much more, but the new age digital brands, even Mama Earth in its red herring had to say that they are a digital first brand. Correct. For a reason, right? They are more than D2C. And what we are building out with KindLife is very, very similar. We are building out a platform for brands that are digital first. Right. ShopClues was a platform for brands that were offline first. So the way they are built out is very different.
And none of this could actually take place unless and until we have a robust logistics infrastructure. And with that, I would come to Atul just to try and understand as to what exactly is ShipRocket doing to ensure that the D2C space grows in India. I'm told ShipRocket has dedicated channels, dedicated resources to look into this. So what exactly are you doing and how big an opportunity do you think this is? I can hear you.
Like Radhika mentioned, D2C as a channel where I can directly connect with the buyers, have my retargeting, control the experience. It's an evolving channel. Wasn't there like 6 years back. There were the e-commerce 1.0 when it was there. It was only horizontal marketplaces. Even today in India, direct commerce is what, 7-8%. We have 50,000 Shopify websites. US with a much larger e-commerce landscape has 45% direct commerce, 3 million Shopify websites. And if you ask me how will that journey happen, we fundamentally believe that there is this piece of building great brands, building an awesome shopping experience, making checkout seamless, payment seamless, with the likes of Shopify, thousands of entrepreneurs, Razorpay, etc. are doing. But where marketplaces really deliver an exceptional experience is what happens after the order has been placed. And we have been spoiled of late with the likes of Amazon, Flipkart, and everyone upping the game there. I come from Amazon. I've worked with Amazon for around 5 years. There the delivery experience team is bigger than the customer experience team. Prime, fulfilled by Amazon, everyone rolls up to delivery experience. True. And at ShipRocket, we believe that if direct commerce has to succeed, there needs to be a post-checkout operating system in that sense. right? There are multiple systems in Amazon delivery experience or any other big marketplace delivery experience coming together. Nobody can manufacture it themselves. So we have proudly 200 plus integrations. We are a collaborator. We don't have our own fleet. We work with the logistics partners. We don't have our own WMS, but we work with all the WMSs available. We don't have our own payment gateway. We work with all the payment gateways to create a single view for a small SMB merchant or a D2C brand to come and access host of services. And that's fundamentally what we are trying to build. Saying post-checkout experience is where there's a scope for a lot of improvement, a lot of stitching together. No one can manufacture everything together. So we don't say we manufacture things, but we proudly say we collaborate, and we want to be the biggest enabler, so to say, for all the entrepreneurs, everyone and anyone trying to do direct commerce.
You're responsible for the products that actually reaches us on time.
Yeah, it's about product reaching. It's about how can you have faster delivery. It's about you shop on Amazon, you see order within X minutes and get it by tomorrow. You know, why isn't that technology available for every D2C brand?
Right.
You are able to get the order next day. Why is it not there for everyone? When the order is shipped, you get regular tracking messages. Why isn't that there for everyone? The tracking page experience, you are able to, with a couple of clicks, create a return request. Why is it not there for all the 40,000 Shopify websites? So yes, there is this element of delivering the order, but the experience on top of it, which we are very used to on Marketplace, how can we ensure that when you shop from any direct commerce website, that's par or better than what you have on Marketplaces?
Right. And you know, ShipRocket comes after you've placed an order. So once you click, you made the payment, and then ShipRocket comes and ensures that it brings the order to your home in a safe and effortless manner in the right sort of packaging. But what happens, and somebody who helps some of these companies set up the backend, set up the infrastructure in the right manner. So somebody like a KindLife, somebody like a Radhika, she's done this before. She has a brilliant team of engineers and people from tech background who can help us build the backend. But what happens to some of the D2C companies who've just started up, who do not have perhaps that much of venture capital funding? Or even, more challenging is the fact that the kind of resources or networking which is required to set up a company. That's where Fashinza come into play. And I would like to understand from you, from you, Pawan, as to how are you helping a company, for that matter, a D2C company, process and facilitate seamless omni-channel supply in a market like ours?
So we are probably in the least sexy of the industry, I think. We are the back end and get the production and manufacturing done.
But the backbone.
I mean, you can call us a backbone for sure, but I think what we realized was that there's a lot of innovation required when you're launching a new product, and that innovation does not end, especially in the industry which we work, which is the fashion industry. The innovation is not just about getting one product innovation right and then scaling for next 10 years on top of it. You have to continuously build on new products. You have to continuously do, like, for example, in clothing, get out new designs, get out new fabrics, do a lot of product development, and do that every month, every quarter, every season. And I think this is where we put ourselves in, that we help you do that product innovation. We help you also get those products manufactured so that you can give your customers what they want, rather than just relying on something that you are, let's say you specialized in 5 years back. I mean, for example, it's very hard to find a brand nowadays which only does one product. Like earlier you would have a shirts brand. Earlier you would have somebody who's specializing in blazers. I mean, we all grew up thinking Raymond's was a suits brand. But nowadays, especially in D2C, where you get so much data from the customers on what the customer wants, you want to be able to supply that product to the customers, and hence you want to increase your product base. You want to offer new things to your customers every new season, every month, every quarter. And that level of innovation required to constantly churn out new products is something that very, very few companies can actually muster those kind of resources. And in fact, we work with some of the largest retailers or brands of the world, even they are not able to really handle that level of fragmentation on the back end. So this is where we come in, and we firmly believe that, because we help you get, now we work across 15 categories across clothing as well as footwear, and we'll be starting accessories also very soon. It just gives you a whole lot of gamut, especially if you are a D2C brand, because like Radhika mentioned, like D2C gives you data on the customer. Right. Now, if you do not have the means to act on that data, there's no point of having that data. Like, for example, recently you saw all these cord sets becoming really popular. Now, you can have great data. If you're a t-shirts brand, you have great data on your customers really asking for bottoms as well in the same print. But if you can't offer those bottoms to your customer, what good is that data? And this is where we come in. Right. And I think by integrating all this, it's not just an IT thing. Like, we also do a product innovation on the hardware part. Like, how do we use the right fabrics for bottoms as well as the tops, et cetera, et cetera. And I think those kind of innovations I see now happening. There's Fashinza, obviously, there are a couple of more in the market who are doing that. And I think that innovation is now pushing a lot of new offerings to the customer, and hence helping them handle a lot more fragmentation.
Right. My next question is a $1 million question for the person who has millions of dollars in his pocket right now. And some of the startups who are wanting to raise funding may approach him directly. But here's my question, I would like to ask you, what happens, when a D2C startup approaches you? There are two questions, actually, that I have for you. One is, D2C are not tech startups. How do you value some of these startups in a market which has so been dominated by tech as a standard of valuation? And my second question to you is, do you also kind of look at some of these ancillary startups? For instance, somebody like a Fashinza or somebody like a ShipRocket, who's not a D2C player themselves, but is actually assisting some of the D2C brands to kind of go further.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, and I wish the millions were with me. But I think firstly, I think to the point Radhika made, I think we must celebrate what Varun and Ghazal have done. It's a hard market. They've gone up against established players. They've stood their ground, and they've built a commendable business. I think it's hard. It was earlier harder, but it's hard to come up with challenger brands and compete as strongly as they have done in the market, dominated by international large brands. I think D2C and this entire digital native business had a very different outlook when we were locked up in our homes in COVID. And I think that's where I think the virus has hit all of us in terms of misunderstanding the implications of that dynamic of how India is going to consume online and how digitally native brands are going to expand. I think we, investors and founders, I think are both guilty of overestimating that the behaviors will stay on longer, that because we were forced to buy pretty much everything online, given a choice, we will continue to be online. I think that fallacy has very quickly broken through. There was no way for us to be a very different digital economy than China and the US, and I don't like to compare because I think we are very different markets. We are very different micro markets for that matter, right? So very hard to start comparing, to those markets. But I think there was an overestimation that happened. I think certainly the asks on valuation, the meeting of valuation was very much tech first and very much Western oriented in terms of how some of these businesses were valued. Tech is an enabler in any of these businesses. This is not a core tech process or a core tech business. We're still dealing with consumer products which are very much, touch and feel, very much have a very complex supply chain in most cases. So I think a lot of the valuation metrics and the manner in which it was sort of put pressure on founders and the ecosystem in many ways, which I think we all realize that it was completely off the charts, and I would blame COVID meds in many ways where none of us were thinking right about it. I think from our point of view, continue to believe that digitally native businesses, D2C, and challenger brands are actually very important for the entire consumerization story to roll out and expand rapidly. I think aspirationally, we are seeing greater adoption of new age brands coming through. Whether we are going to find right scale in just being digitally native, whether we need to move omni-channel, what's the right point of making these decisions, how strong is brand saliency as you start thinking about going offline? I think all of those are important considerations in any evaluation. From our point of view, as a fund, we actually have taken, to Pawan's point, the less sexy route of thinking about, the ecosystem. Much like in the gold rush, where people were going out and digging for gold and investing all their savings behind gold, digging for gold. We are actually more the picks and shovels people, where we are actually more focused on investing behind enablers that are going to spur the consumerization, whether it's D2C, whether it's offline in any manner, but really focus more on enablers and find a way in which you stay relevant to all forms of the market versus trying to pick one versus the other. So like Fashinza, for example, on the B2B side, there are so many players who are digitizing the entire supply chain, making it easy and convenient for new age D2C brands to really exist and build and doing what's core to them, or a ShipRocket for that matter, right? Which is completely easing out the biggest pain which is post checkout and the customer experience that goes wrong. So we are more focused on looking at the picks and shovels or the enabler segments within this entire D2C story, and I think very bullish in general on D2C. But I think our own thesis aligns a lot more to the picks and shovels, and that's really what we're investing behind.
Right, thank you. That's quite interesting to know. And coming back to you, Deepanshu, the fact that the last mile delivery or the products reaching consumers in the right state is very important. Do you think that a company like yours would also want to partner with the local retailers and the local suppliers to ensure that the product is of the utmost quality?
So, okay, there are two questions actually, they're not related. So first of all, we don't want to, pass on our, delivery to a local guy. We want to control as much as possible of the entire supply chain because of the perishable nature. The locals, meat retailers are actually not following much in terms of quality, hence we exist. So what we are essentially now looking at doing is enabling them, to what all of us are discussing here is we would be moving into a direction where we will work with them to upgrade them, to modernize them, and to become their supply chain partner, so that we penetrate through them rather than using them for our own purpose. We think that they need to be up and running in a certain way for us to be able to look at working for our deliveries. So I think that particular retail segment in meat is still primitive, and it's come up of age, but it's still very, very unorganized. So I think we want to work and collaborate with those guys for sure, but not for our own deliveries.
All right. And coming back to you, Radhika, backstage we were talking about how your website is being assisted so much by artificial intelligence. For that matter, you have a collaborator's diary of sort of things wherein you help with a lot of these creators to kind of create awareness. Tell us a bit about, how are you creating a robust technology infrastructure to ensure that you could reach out to the consumers and the right set of consumers for the right set of products?
So, when I said earlier, when we built our ShopClues, it was for offline first brands, right? Now what we're building out is for digital first brands. We're also, similarly, when you look at the consumer segment, it's significantly different. When ShopClues was being built out, people were being convinced, cajoled, sometimes arm twisted, and given a lot of free money to come and shop online. Those days are over. We started KindLife early last year, and we've been watching our unit economics like a hawk. Contribution margin 1, contribution margin 2, contribution margin 1.5 bhi hota hai, 3 bhi hota hai, depend karta hai kisse baat kar rahe ho. So all of those things have changed completely. So what does that mean? If we are building out a platform now that is for a highly digitally savvy consumer, that is for brands that are digital native brands, we have to use a very strong technology backbone to be able to build that out. Something to be said about the fact that we are all sitting here talking about D2C, and in a way, each one of us is an enabler for multiple D2C brands, including Ankur. He shells out the capital there, so that works. But we are using AI on multiple fronts. One is to be able to discover the right product for the consumer. The ability to just have the search bar is gone now. It needs to be more than that. And we've built out a Gen AI product that sits on top of our content, that sits on top of our product, and enables you to find the right product on that. Another big discovery channel for us is also creators. We work with creators and influencers a lot who go on and talk to their own segment. The way we work on that is that we've built out an AI tool for them to be able to create what we call their collections without having to go in and individually add each of the product to their page. So it's completely AI built. They tell the tool who they are, and the tool pulls out the collection. It also pulls out the collection for their different target audiences as well. And then, of course, the most obvious, do we have an AI bot that supports customer support and completely, that supports merchant support, etc. So the new platforms being built out are being built out in a very, very different way. AI is not just a good investor term to have, it is a reality.
Pawan has been nodding profusely, and let me ask him that, when it comes to data analytics, at what point do you actually help brands make more informed decisions? I mean, there's a lot of maths that goes behind what a consumer buys and how he gets to buying it. Give me an anecdote. Tell me more about how you help the companies make these decisions and consumers to end up making those purchases.
So to be honest, I think we don't capture the customer data because brands do. We work more on the back end. Now, there are two ways we help them. One is we help them really, number one, capture the data of which is going on around the globe. Like, we were one of the first in the country to capture the trend of sleepwear becoming more popular. So we helped multiple brands launch sleepwear when COVID just hit. And some of the brands, sleepwear ended up becoming like the key category for them now, even 2 years from now. We were one of the first brands to launch cord sets or like oversized tees. So we use a lot of such data generally around the world, and that's where we also position ourselves, that we allow you to capture the trend. Also, given the fact that we work across the world, now we have a great data around what influences what, like Europe influences the US influences India, which segment of population influences which segment of population in which country. So those kind of data is something that we build upon, and hence we are able to capture trend data at a much faster level compared to even some of the brands, like even some of the direct-to-consumer brands, because they're looking at the data of their own consumers.
Right.
So
it's a more holistic kind of a data juggling, so as to say. I have two concluding questions, one of course for Atul and the other for Ankur. And just so that we could understand, it's not an easy journey to kind of look at. And when it comes to D2C, these are like almost an unorganized set of companies that you have to work with. What are some of the challenges that as a logistics service provider you've been facing so far, and your plans to overcome that? And given the paucity of time, if you could just be a little sharp.
I think rather than talking about the challenges, let me approach it from their perspective. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are starting their business. Yes, we hear about the mamas and the boats, but we work with, for example, 70,000 merchants, active merchants selling online, 20,000 Shopify websites. I think the biggest challenge for them is they don't have massive teams or infrastructure to be able to adopt a lot of stuff which we have talked about. So we take that back as a challenge, saying, how can I make it simple for everyone to be able to adopt the beautiful experience which I talked about on the post-checkout experience. When we talk to these merchants, the first thing, a common theme, what they keep telling us is, okay, fine, you're taken care of the post-checkout experience. ठीक है, logistical ले दो, आप deliver experience हो गया. What I want is business, right? I don't know which marketing agency to go to. What do I do? How do I reduce my CAC? What can I do to improve my business? And I'm not coming to potentially forums like this. I don't network. I don't know where to go. Who do I reach out for insights on business? So we have started thinking from that perspective. Can I build simple tools for them, simple enablers for them? How can they access ONDC? Everyone hears about ONDC. Can they easily access? So we have a single-click integration with ONDC for a seller if he wants to be available across the ONDC network. Two-day integration, somebody calls, enables you to do that. We talked about influencer marketing. The bigger brands are doing it. What about a small guy who's doing 200 orders a month? Imagine somebody doing 200 orders a month. I do want access to influencer marketing platform. There's this brilliant platform, One Impression. We collaborated with them to create it, to launch ShipRocket Amplify, which is SMB backwards influencer marketing platform. 3 clicks, you'll have an influencer campaign. You don't have to figure out where to go, how to go. You just give your requirements like you were talking about for the influencer to create their catalog. This is more for the SMB merchants. So I think, yeah, it's more, I won't call it challenges we face. You have to look at it from their perspective, be empathetic, understand they are based in Agra, Ludhiana, Ambala, doing their business. How do we build for them along with building for the bigger guys is what we think of. How do we enable the MSMEs and the SMBs in the country to succeed by building tools for them which are accessible, simple, and deliver delta.
So one-stop solution for sure. Ankur, I'd like to kind of conclude this by asking you. Today we are all talking about rationalization, how there should be limited amount of money and the companies need to know where to spend that money in the most effective manner. But if we go back to say like 2020, 2021, we saw how a bunch of D2C brands, so as to say, had abundance of capital. Unicorns were created overnight and the companies just came up from nowhere. Some of them exist and have grown, but some of them are no more there to be seen. I want to ask you about the curse of capital. How bad is that? And given the time we are sitting do you think that this is something which, as an investment firm, your firm would completely be kind of avoiding? There will be limited amount of money, funding in very select few startups. What's going to be the strategy like?
Sure. Radhika, you'll remember we spoke about CM1, CM2. 13 years back, we were struggling sitting together. How do you define economics that makes sense for a business and what's North Star for us? Life has obviously changed significantly, since that time. But look, I think, much like anyone who likes music, when you're in a happy mood, you listen to the beat, you listen to the tune, and once you're sad, the words have meaning, and that's what you listen to, right? And that's what you understand. I think the dynamic that's played out in investing actually is no different, right? We were in the euphoria of how things were scaling rapidly, in 2020, early 21, and I think that euphoria meant, as I said earlier as well, we overestimated the impact, we overestimated the growth potential, and therefore we overestimated the value of companies. And by virtue of that, we obviously landed up, putting excessive capital into companies, which meant that there was a huge amount of burn to meet, those goals that were, commonly agreed. I think we all realized there was a time that we wish hadn't happened in both the founder journeys and also in the investor journeys, right? I think we are both singed and burned, by that time. I think the frugal use of capital, I think we've all known all along. I mean, that's really the economies that we've all built. I think we forgot that quite importantly for that period, given the free money that flowed and the abundance of capital, that was there. That tourist capital is no longer available. will not be available for a reasonable period of time. And I think that DNA of founders has already changed, right? We are building in the last 18 months as a fund, and I don't think we've seen anyone talking about, pump money in to build a business. They obviously need to do that to build a brand. I mean, I think performance marketing and spending on that is history to a large extent. People are still talking about building a brand, building customer love, building customer experience, and then using that as a way, to grow, and build on. So I think those habits are no longer there. But we certainly focus a lot on, defining what's North Star for some of these companies. And in different stages, there is a different need. I don't think there is a one-size-fit-all metric that's important, right? I think in the journey, everyone needs to start looking at very relevant metrics to them, and they evolve, in the journeys that they have. I think that's the last thing that we focus a lot on, and sometimes this entire D2C, omni-channel, offline, etc. I think a lot of it actually comes back to figuring out, as a brand, what do you stand for? What's the consumer segment that you're trying to build for, and who are you within that consumer segment, right? And I think a lot of decisions need to be made with that first principle in mind, financial and operating decisions. I think what we are trying to do is make sure that we avoid tunnel vision on both sides, founders and investors. We are not no longer living in an echo chamber where we are believing TAMs that exist, markets that exist. Markets need to be created, and the product creates that market. So where do you sit in that journey, I think, is the most important question that we all are collectively trying to answer and build on. Financial metrics are a follow of that. So really building businesses that make sense, sitting in personas that you have a meaningful presence in, and you have the opportunity to be different yet relevant in that ecosystem is really all that we are trying to work with. Metrics will evolve, metrics will change, but founder mindset is very different than what it was 2 years back. And I know folks on this panel will agree. They may not have been bitten by it, but they've seen enough people around them building in their same ecosystems who've burnt a lot of money with limited results in the longer term.
Correct. So you do not understand the lyrics unless you've had a broken heart, or in this case, have burnt your fingers. And the rest of the time is just the tunes that get into your ears. So I don't think we could have ended the panel on such a beautiful note otherwise. Thank you so much for this brilliant explanation. And thank you for being such a wonderful audience. A big round of applause for the panelists, please.